quiet. It does not break easily. It does not require protection. It often exists beneath everything else, waiting without effort. Quiet is often mistaken for silence, for the absence of sound, for a space where nothing happens, for a moment emptied of activity. But quiet is rarely that complete. There is usually sound somewhere, a distant movement, a soft background presence, something continuing quietly, even when it is not noticed. Quiet does not require the world to stop. It does not arrive only when everything else disappears. Often quiet is present, even when sound remains. It appears when nothing is asking to be responded to, when no sound insists on meaning, when nothing needs to be interpreted. A steady background hum, a repetitive natural rhythm, a sound that does not change abruptly. These do not interrupt quiet. They support it. Quiet is not the same as emptiness. It does not remove experience. It softens it. It allows sounds to exist without urgency. It allows movement to continue without demand. Quiet does not require attention to narrow. It does not require listening closely. It is often noticed most clearly when attention is no longer trying to find it. There are moments when quiet arrives unexpectedly, not because the environment changes, but because the relationship to it does. Sounds fade into the background. Details lose their sharpness. Nothing stands out. Quiet does not announce itself. It does not draw focus. It simply remains when nothing competes with it. And even when sound returns, quiet does not always leave. It can exist alongside activity, alongside motion, alongside the steady passing of time. Quiet is not fragile. Quiet often appears most clearly in places that are already known, spaces that do not require attention, environments that no longer need to be learned. Familiar places tend to carry less urgency. Nothing there needs to be figured out. Nothing asks for explanation. The mind does not have to stay alert. A room that has been entered many times before. A path walked often. A view that no longer surprises. In these places, quiet settles naturally. Not because they are silent, but because they are predictable. Sounds occur without calling attention. Movements happen without needing to be tracked. Nothing feels unfinished. Familiar places do not demand engagement. They allow attention to soften. Details can exist without being examined. Background sounds can continue without becoming noticeable. Quiet emerges when the environment no longer asks questions. There is no need to anticipate what comes next. No need to remain prepared. The place carries itself. This kind of quiet often feels steady. It does not come and go quickly. It remains present as long as nothing disrupts the sense of familiarity. Even when sound is present, it blends easily into the background. A steady rhythm, a repeated motion, something that continues without variation. These elements support quiet rather than interrupt it. In familiar places, time also feels different. Moments are less distinct. There is no clear sense of progression. Experience unfolds gently without markers. Quiet does not require isolation. It can exist in shared spaces, in environments that are softly occupied. What matters is not being alone, but being unneeded. Nothing requires response. Nothing waits to be completed. Quiet becomes a natural condition, present without effort. Quiet does not require sound to disappear. It often exists alongside it. There may be movement in the distance, a consistent background presence, a sound that continues without change. These do not interrupt quiet. Quiet is not the absence of sound, but the absence of insistence. Sounds that remain steady tend to fade into the background. They do not pull attention forward. They do not ask to be interpreted. A repetitive rhythm, a low, continuous tone, natural movement that does not vary sharply. These sounds support quiet rather than disrupt it. When sound becomes predictable, it loses urgency. It no longer needs to be followed. It becomes part of the environment rather than something separate. Quiet often appears when sound stops being important, not because sound is gone, but because it no longer competes. In these moments, attention does not need to narrow. There is no reason to listen closely. Sound can exist without becoming the center of experience. Quiet and sound can coexist easily. One does not cancel the other. Sound moves through the space. Quiet remains beneath it. The presence of sound does not mean activity. It can simply be a sign that the world continues. Quiet does not require control over the environment. It does not need sound to be removed. It remains available even when the world is not silent. And when sound changes gently, without abrupt shifts, quiet remains undisturbed. It holds steady, allowing sound to pass through without reaction. Quiet does not need to be created. It does not require conditions to be arranged in a certain way. It does not depend on effort or intention. Quiet often appears when effort falls away, when there is no need to manage experience, no need to shape what is happening. It arrives when nothing is being asked of attention. There is no need to look for quiet. It is often noticed only after the search for it stops. Attention relaxes its grip. Experience continues on its own. Quiet settles naturally. There is no sense of achieving it. It does not feel like progress. It feels more like a release, a moment when nothing needs to be adjusted. Quiet does not require awareness to stay alert. It can remain present even as attention softens, even as thought drifts, even as focus fades. There is no need to stay with it. Quiet does not disappear when it is not noticed. It does not depend on being observed. It exists independently of attention. In this way, quiet is not something fragile. It does not break when experience changes. It remains steady beneath movement, beneath sound, beneath thought. Quiet without effort feels uncomplicated. There is no technique involved, no instruction to follow. Nothing needs to be done differently. Experience continues, and quiet remains alongside it, not as something separate, but as a background condition, always available, never demanding. Quiet does not need to be held. It does not need attention in order to stay present. It does not fade when it is no longer noticed. Quiet remains on its own. There may be moments when experience becomes more active, when sound shifts, when thought briefly returns to the foreground. Quiet does not leave during these moments. It stays beneath what changes. There is no need to return to quiet, no need to recognize it again. It does not require confirmation. Quiet continues, whether it is acknowledged or not. It does not need to deepen. It does not need to become more complete. Each moment of quiet stands on its own. When attention moves away, nothing is lost. Quiet does not accumulate. It does not build toward anything. It remains simple and unchanged. In this way, quiet feels familiar, not because it is remembered, but because it does not demand attention. It exists without asking to be noticed. There is no need to preserve it, no need to stay within it. Experience continues naturally, and quiet remains alongside it, uninterrupted, unconcerned, available without effort. Nothing needs to be resolved. Nothing needs to be carried forward. quiet remains, as it always has.